I guess at one level, functionality. It allows us to function within society with ease. There's a sense of connectivity, I guess, between the internet and the mobile phone, that notion that we need this technology in order to connect through various means. There's a sort of scholarly element in there with the internet. There's also pleasure. You know, we like to watch. Yes, you can watch film on your phone, and I get that. But actually, you know, what we really want is the big kind of Sony TV with the surround sound. It's pleasurable. So there's a kind of utopian promise, I guess, with much technology, which I want to keep with us as we look at this backdrop of technophobia and how it should be in a society which is so kind of reliant, dependent, embracing of technological forms. We get such strong, and again, just a very simple dictionary definition of technophobia. So much cinema seems to focus on the fear of the effects of technological developments, whether that's on the individual, whether it's on society as a whole, or somewhere in between. There is an undercurrent within a huge amount of cinema in which fears and anxieties around technological forms are explored or foregrounded. And this, at the level of kind of cultural studies, I think is really interesting. How is it that this emerges when clearly we benefit in so many ways? In fact, one of the measures of kind of civilization is access to technologies, isn't it? That we will look at the number of people who have access to the internet and perhaps compare that to the third world and kind of claim a superiority there. Oh, how unfortunate for people in Ghana, only 2% of the population can access the internet. It's there. And yet at the same time we have this really curious fascination with either technology that goes wrong or technology that somehow manages to exceed its own limitations. And I guess that's where we're going today. So technophobia is the linchpin of today's talk, lecture, whatever you want to call it. And something that maybe you kind of, I think we all experience that thing, don't we, with older generations. When your gran first got a mobile phone and she was just literally clueless and you tried to explain how to make it work and she couldn't do it, and in the end she put it in a drawer and said, no, I'm done with it, I don't like it. There's maybe an association with older generations and technophobia. They don't like, although there are technological forms that are really breakthrough. I think the Nintendo Wii was radical for that. In Britain, they start putting them in old folks' homes, and suddenly, you got 90-year-olds playing Wii boxing, and embracing the technology in a way we've never seen before. But for most of us, we live with technology. It's useful. We get it. We enjoy it. But we're going to look at this notion of technophobia. Some critics absolutely have kind of cited that this is very much kind of 20th century phenomenon. So if we look at the quote here from Meehan, and I will make sure all of these slides are available, so if you want to kind of work your way through them at a later point, you can do. I think just for those who are clock watching, if you're bored already, we're going to finish about 7:30 today. Let's go. Yeah, 7:30 is the anticipated finishing time, but you never quite know with a lecture. So according to Meehan here, and it's not a great academic book, don't look at this as the book to buy in terms of tech noir. It's a useful one, but it's a little bit kind of, it's somewhere between academia and coffee table reading. So it states here that a widespread fear of technology began to manifest itself with the coming of the atomic age. The use of nuclear weapons on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, as well as the equally devastating conventional bombings of Dresden, Tokyo and Berlin during World War II, raised the spectre of the mass annihilation of entire cities for the first time. And I think, I don't think anyone came to my lecture on, the lecture you were at the university, on invasion narratives. Oh, you were there? Yes, of course you were. But there I would have talked, again about technological forms, about fears around, actually I was talking about fears about the restructuring of American society, but certainly fears around the atomic bomb, about developments in science about a universe in which atomic testing can create giant ants, if you've ever seen them, or release other kind of hellish fiends upon the Earth. And almost always invading forces in invasion narratives are technologically superior. So there's an association there with technology and power. Not only have they built flying saucers, which is all jolly good, but they have advanced weaponry or advanced communications, or they can travel through time and space. So there's, I get where Meehan's coming from with this, and I think absolutely in the invasion narratives of the 1950s we see those concerns around technology. But actually, it goes back much further. And people here, because I never know kind of how much sort of British history makes it into the kind of classroom teaching in Malta, but are people familiar with the Luddites? Yeah, so you've heard of them. Everyone else? No, I wasn't expecting anyone, actually. So the Luddites were a group in the 19th century in England. It actually started in Nottingham, where I'm from, just down the road, tiny little town called Ruddington. They were a group of English textile workers and weavers who destroyed weaving machinery as a form of protest, because they felt that the craft and the skills that they had, that they'd learned, that had been passed down over hundreds of years, were going to be lost to this machinery that could do it faster, that could do it better, that didn't need to stop for a cup of water. And that ultimately, there was a rebellion, lasted from about 1811, I think, for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, in which weavers literally destroyed the machinery that was being brought into the factories. So it was all around framework knitting, destroyed the machines. It was named after the leader of the group. I can't remember his first name. That's it. Ned Ludd is how we get the name Luddites. He was actually a fictional figure, like Robin Hood. He was kind of created to inspire the people to rebel. And rumour had it that he lived in Sherwood Forest, just as Robin Hood had done, and all this, but he never actually existed. But there you can see the rewards that went out. Rebellion lasts for a few years, and then mill owners. We do this in Britain quite well. When things piss us off, we generally shoot them. Or we did do. We don't do it so much anymore. But certainly, if you look at the colonial history of Britain, there's an awful lot of going over to places and going, right, this is ours now, and if you don't like it, we'll shoot you. They did exactly that with the Luddites. So the protest was put down with violence, with force, and everyone realised that losing your job was probably slightly better than being shot. And that ended the rebellion right there. But it was a fear, crucially, over a technological form. Yes?
It happened a bit similar here in our history.
Okay.
With the sail makers, the change from the sailing vessels to the steam powered vessels. So, and we had the British Navy here.
Yeah.
So there was a widespread effect on the workers that used to make sails. A lot of families got their income from making sails.
Okay, what sort of era was this? What kind of years are we talking?
It would be 1800s, late 1800s. Probably,
obviously coming off, key to this is the Industrial Revolution, in which we're seeing so many processes. That move from cottage industries, and skills handed down for centuries to the mass mechanisation of the workforce. But that's really, I'll have to look into that. That's really interesting. Excellent. Okay, so Technophobia then, I'm going to go back further than Meehan and state that actually it goes out, it can go back far beyond the Luddites. The wheel as a technological form, I'm sure, raised eyebrows back in the day for lots of reasons. But it's left a fascinating legacy, a really interesting legacy for cinema. And one that, in terms of my kind of interest in it, and I had a copy, it's really hard to get hold of, a copy of this film, but I first kind of started thinking about these ideas as a young boy, and I was off sick, and like most kids, when you're off sick, you just kind of, you sit on the sofa, don't you, with a duvet, and you put the telly on. And British daytime television, certainly back in my day, consisted of, old British movies by and large. And there's a fascinating movie called Meet Mr. Lucifer. It's an Ealing comedy, and it's a brilliant piece of film. If you can get hold of it, and I have a copy on VHS cassette.
When was it released?
It was 1953. 1953. And Stanley Holloway is in the lead of this film. Well worth watching it. In which television is literally the tool of the devil. Okay, literally the tool of the devil. So he has created television, and what happens is TV then is kind of placed into the world, and we see kind of the social structures and interactions that traditionally existed for all time start to disintegrate. So it has this kind of soporific effect on society, and it all goes horribly wrong. And this is literally the devil's work. So TV is literally the devil's work. And yes, it's a comedy, but it actually has a kind of really interesting subtext there about that link between Lucifer and the technological form. So this is my kind of first thought. I remember as a kid going, this is really interesting. And I'm watching this film on TV, there's kind of layers of irony here, that I'm sat lying on a sofa watching a film in which Satan has made TV to keep people lying on sofas. And that kind of stayed with me as a kid, but I'll kind of, we're going to go to a sense of structure. This is just a prelude, who knew? We're only just beginning. So the structure for today, I said I want to bring together a number of concerns. And these are the kind of headings that I've come up with. So this kind of notion of dark technologies, I'm going to be talking about a little bit about the effects debate. Okay. And my work, my kind of research and publications in that area as well, so it's linked a bit to certainly my early career as an academic. I then want to look at a kind of a key period, a really interesting key period for me, which is largely, but not exclusively, towards the end of the 1990s. Yeah, so going back a while, in which cinema, and I'm not talking about science fiction cinema here, but so-called realist set in a contemporary setting cinema started to explore anxieties around technology. And there's a cluster of films that do this, okay, that I think is really quite interesting, doing very similar things. So we're going to explore those a little bit. And then we're going to start looking at that evolution of film noir. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because most people here can't have an awareness, I guess, of film noir, through to tech noir as one of the most enduring and I think interesting subgenres of science fiction. So that's going to be roughly what we're going to do. And I think it does, the more I think about it, I think it does all hold together in the same thing. Yes, we're going to talk about some different genres, yes, we're going to talk about some different periods, but underpinning it, as I say, is this notion of technophobia. Okay. And also with tech noir, I'm going to talk about what I would call the golden age of tech noir. Tech noir is still very much with us, but I think there is a kind of crystallizing of concerns at a key point. So we'll do that. In terms of reading, I think there's a number of books here. Personally, I would go for the Film Noir Reader 2. I think is a really good book. But all of those I would kind of recommend as research for this if you wanted to look into those. And the article Panic Site, Susan Napier's article, is really good as well. It's literally going to get sunny the day I leave, isn't it? Quiet Sunday night, and Monday's going to be sunny. I can see.
No, it's not normal for
Wednesday.
Oh, really?
It is.
Okay.
ذاك الشتاء هذا الهدوء
I feel really bad.
That was really weird. Like rainy and then it was sunny and then it.
This is like equatorial tropic. It rains and then sunny, it rains and then
Yeah. I had I digress, but because I've got 4 interns working on the island at the moment from my university, and I was asked to film a promotional video for kind of internships in Malta. And was it yesterday or the day before? I forced them. I knew I wanted some kind of fun footage of them socialising, having fun. I wanted some underwater shots. I forced them into the sea with a GoPro, and I've never come so close to killing a student in my life. They literally were blue by the time they came out. It's all right. We can fix it with colour correction. That's what you do in movies. They won't be blue for long. But yeah, they did it, so that was nice. Anyway, come back to it. So recommended reading.
So which one you suggest from the other?
From these, I like the film Noir Reader 2 very, very much, and I like the Susan Napier article. I think that's a really interesting. That's available online as well now, free, so you can get that. The stuff from the BFI on Blade Runner and the Terminator is very, very good. Again, that'll give you some real depth to it. And then, I think David Scal's book, Screams of Reason, again, is good. David Scal writes really nicely on a lot of genres, but all of those, you'll get good mileage out of.
This will be available, right? The list.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to make sure you don't have to write all this down. I'm going to make sure before I go that Fabrizio gets.
Thank you.
All the things. Or do you have a Facebook group? Because
No.
Yes, we do. Of course we do.
Okay. Well, maybe the easiest thing to do is if someone invites me into your Facebook group, I can put a Dropbox link to the
You have
slides.
to pay, I think, 1,000 or something.
Yeah, maybe I'll just send it.
Just send the link.
Actually, for anyone who has got questions or anything like that, certainly if you want to kind of throw me on Facebook, I'm always happy to answer questions. Even if it's just movie recommendations or whatever. I've got, and it's a number of students who've already done that, but do feel free. It's just easy.
But let's hope it survives Facebook.
Say it again.
Let's hope it survives Facebook, because there's a real attack on it at the moment.
Okay, so we've got some recommended reading, we've got some recommended viewing. I'm going to go a little bit anecdotal on you, and this is quite self-indulgent, I think. But I've locked the door and you can't get out, so you might as well just stay with it for the moment. So I grew up in the 1980s. That was my era, and I grew up with the first wave of home computers. Yeah. Now we've had video games actually go back all the way to Steve Russell's Space War in the very early 1960s. I think people are sometimes shocked at how long video games have been around. But absolutely, the 1980s was the era of kind of home computing. It's a fascinating kind of era to study because we had this incredible explosion in the early 80s. In 1983, we had the great video games crash, and there's all sorts of interesting stories. I'm aware of E.T. the video game and the kind of what happened there. Which is there's a documentary on it out now, but has nothing to do with this lecture, except it is technology, I suppose. But they rushed out the E.T. video game to coincide with the release of the film, and it was a poorly constructed, badly coded video game that had kind of no real value to it, and it was Atari that brought this out, and they created hundreds of thousands of units. Which none of them sold, and they had to bury it. I forget which desert it was. They literally buried hundreds of thousands of copies of E.T., the video game, out in the desert because they couldn't shift them. And in the documentary, because I've known about this for years, but there's always been that kind of sense of, is it an urban myth? Did it really happen? A team actually go out and they finally locate the site, and they dig up these video games that have just sat there since 1983. And that caused the crash. After 1983, video games were dead for a couple of years. It was only Nintendo actually kind of revived that. There you go. So I grew up with the first home computers. I don't know, did the ZX81 make it to Malta? Yeah. So cassette-based You know, you would literally spend, and you ladies, I'm afraid, will just go, I don't know what you're talking about. You would literally load your video game, you put it in a cassette player, which is hooked to your computer, and it would make this awful noise.
You could record it on, you know, they used to have these programs on radio.
Yeah.
They would be transmitting these programs, so for half an hour you just hear these noises and you're recording it. And I tried to play the game.
Absolutely.
I remember that.
And then inevitably, after 5 minutes of waiting for it to load, it would crash. And you have to start again. So it could take literally half a day to get your game to
We were very patient back then.
but great, you know, a great era.
Third volume 2 and third volume 3.
But going back to Meehan, where is he? It points out here that in the 1980s, personal computers began to become available for home and business use, but mankind's embrace of digital technologies brought with it a new set of anxieties born of familiarity. Might not this new cybernetic intimacy lead to the domination of humans by the very artificial intelligences created for our utility and amusement? Now, I'm not sure that many people were kind of thinking this, but certainly anxieties around